Across the nation, nearly 2,000 children go missing every day. We introduce you to a couple local organizations that dedicate their time to educate and help families of missing children, and meet a woman whose daughter has been missing for 25 years. I'm Brenda Kamal. Our Issues Twin Cities starts now. 25 years ago, Susan's 13-year-old daughter vanished without a trace.
It started with a phone call from my husband from the gas station, quite hysterical. Where's Amy? I can't find Amy. Is she at home? Would she, did you come and get her? It's like, I didn't know you were at the gas station at that exact time. I mean, he was not thinking straight at all. I've looked all over for her, and then he called law enforcement, and he had to verify she hadn't walked home because it wasn't too far from her junior high. So, she could have just decided to walk home. We were supposed to go shopping for school supplies that night. Kids sometimes get impatient, although I really can't see Amy doing that. Kids do things unexpectedly, though.
Right.
That's part of being a child. And then he called me back because law enforcement told him to go home. And
so he immediately went to the police right afterwards?
He called the police from the gas station.
Okay.
The law enforcement dispatch person told him to go home and they'd send an officer to our house.
Okay.
He said on the way home he was going to be driving up and down the streets, and so I do remember when he showed up, he says, "Oh, they've already been." He expected them to be there, but they didn't show up, and we waited a little longer, and he says, "Well, call them and see what's taking them so long." So we were a little bit marginally hysterical, I would say, and stuff, and so I called them back, and they sent somebody, and he was preoccupied with whatever case they pulled him off of, and he started the report, and we told him that, he came back from the farm. He went, he went to pay for the gas, and he went to the bathroom, and then when he came out, she was nowhere to be found. Amy loved animals. Amy liked going to Elm Creek Park. She liked to hang around with other kids. She's a normal kid. She liked to socialize, meet new people, normal things that most of us individuals like to do. And, but she was, she's 13, and, oh, let me volunteer. I'd like to get a job, those type of things, and so he talked with people that she knew, and because there was a pet store where that person worked, and they let her help with the animals, and she just thought that was great. There's three things that could have happened. Amy could have had one of the seizures and wandered away, became injured, and she liked Elm Creek Park. She could have fallen down somewhere there, and nobody's ever bothered to search these areas. 610 wasn't there, it was open space. They didn't even search those areas.
Till now, over 25 years, never.
Never. I believe that is probably not what happened, because Lieutenant Markgraf believed that those leads were valid. So that means somebody took Amy. Whether it was somebody that she knew on site, maybe she's seen at the shopping mall when she went up to the pet store, maybe she saw them at Elm Creek Park. I don't know whether it was a complete stranger. We just had a recent abduction on the East Coast. I know it was a while ago, but for me, anything 6 months old is recent, or yesterday. And they says, hey, you want to come see our puppy? That would have worked for Amy.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
the same age.
Right.
She liked animals.
And they were abducted.
And they were abducted. In this case, the press is why they were released.
Are you hopeful that you'll find Amy?
I am very hopeful. We have J.C. Dugard that was found. We have the kids in Ohio. There's others that have been found. And they even find people that they're not really actively looking for at times. So I have no reason to suspect that she's dead. And you know what people don't think, and this is something that really frustrates me, everybody keeps assuming she's dead. Why does everybody assume that? There's been nothing found.
Right.
You can't assume somebody's dead. And they says, well, then if she is in the captivity of, like J.C. Dugard was, or these girls in Ohio, or a victim of traffickers, then obviously she's not going to be able to come. There's another thing, these people don't treat these kids very good.
No.
She did have seizure problems. We now know that concussions can do various brain damage. We don't know whether or not she has a head injury and was dumped somewhere. She could be a homeless person on the streets and not remember because of head injuries, because of the seizures.
What do you want people to know about Amy?
Amy was very intelligent, very active. If somebody had a problem or a need, if she could help out, she would. She even would not turn down some of the kids that bullied her. That was how...
She had a big heart.
That was who she was. And which the qualities that you want your children to have are also the same qualities that criminals take advantage of. But that doesn't mean we don't want our children to have those qualities. That means we have to go after the criminals and stop blaming the victims and making it safer for our children.
Coming up on Our Issues Twin Cities, remembering one of the most memorable missing children cases in Minnesota. You've heard his name a countless number of times, seen his picture all over the media. 25 years later, and Jacob Wetterling's abduction is probably one of the most famous cases of missing children. It was the evening of October 22nd, 1989, that changed the Wetterlings' lives. Jacob, his brother, and friend rode their bikes over to a local convenience store. On their way home, an armed man with a mask stopped the boys, instructed them to lay face down on the ground and give their age. The gunman told Jacob's brother and friend to run into the woods and took Jacob by his arm. Till this day, Jacob has not been found, but his family has not given up. Their mission through the Jacob Wetterling Foundation is to educate and assist families with missing children.
Jacob has been missing now for 25 years. The case happened in October of '89, so in this last October we honored the 25 years of continuing to look. The case remains active and open. The Stearns County Sheriff's Office and FBI continue to get leads. We forward any lead that we get on Jacob's case to law enforcement for them to investigate. And it's our hope that, you know, that with time comes justice and comes answers, and we continue to support those who are asking the hard questions, because, you know, the family and the community and all of us deserve answers in that case.
Why do you think his story resonates with so many people?
I think it's human nature when we're looking at crime to sort of look at a case and say, well, what if I were in those shoes, what could I have done to prevent it? Or if my child were in those shoes, what could I have done to prevent it? And this was a case where there wasn't, you know, there wasn't sort of that, idea of looking in and saying, and it's not it's human nature, but it doesn't mean that it's right. But, a lot of parents or kids will look and say, well, I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have done this. And in Jacob's case, the fact that it was, 3 kids biking home and they were stopped. Usually, non-family abductions, firstly, are very rare, so that's one reason it got a lot of attention. There were witnesses, that is also very rare. There was a weapon, there was a mask. All these things were so rare and so, and law enforcement responded very quickly, which then helped local folks know about it and respond very quickly. So I think there are a lot of things in that case that sort of triggered that the public awareness. And the positive out of the horribly negative is, Jacob was taken in October, so then our nonprofit was founded in February to help all families of the missing. We help families of missing adults, we help families of endangered runaways in whatever context. And we also, most of our work is in prevention. We're in the schools, we're in the PTAs, we're in the faith communities, we're in with policy, we're working to try to prevent. So out of one person's case, the positive things that hundreds and hundreds of families have been helped who have been in crisis, and thousands of families who have been helped when it comes to knowing how to talk about the problem of child abuse and child abduction. But there's still a child out there who's now a man who we need to find out what happened.
Do you work with families mostly of missing children, or just all sorts of people who have gone missing?
All sorts. We have a lot of calls over the last few years of college age students, 18 to 22. We get quite a few of those cases. We work with children who are missing, adults who are missing. We refer for people who've been exploited, for people who've had issues online. Our agency, our goal is to help raise safe kids and to help raise, and it's not a kid's job to be in charge of their safety. It's a kid's job to be a kid.
Right.
It's the grown-up's job to learn about these issues and to know what to do, because our offenders, the offenders that we see in our cases, are really smart. And so we have to be smarter. We have to be steps ahead. We have to share information. We can't allow, silence to direct the conversation. We need to help have these ongoing conversations about personal safety and be aware, because awareness is so huge in this field.
How can we keep our kids safe?
One of the things that we suggest is doing a family safety night twice a year. At the beginning of the school year and the end of the school year, everyone come together and talk about safety. So at the same time you're talking about where the fire extinguisher is kept in your house and talking about the importance of calling 911 in a real emergency, you're also talking about what your rules are with cell phones, what the rules are with the internet, talk about personal safety rules. The reality is there are very few children who are abducted. That's that is not a common occurrence. But we have a lot of children who are physically and sexually abused, and sometimes those lead to cases where the child is taken. And our goal is to stop abuse every single time, so that we can stop children from going missing. There's so many reasons that kids don't tell when bad things happen, and so we have to make it easier by starting the conversation, having it ongoing, and to do a what-if scenario, like, well, what if someone asked you to keep a secret from me? And then you can have a discussion about, the difference between secrets and surprises, and that surprises are okay and secrets aren't. And if they're not sure, come and ask anyway. And, to identify who their 5, we call it the net of 5, who your 5 trusted adults are, who you can go to with any problem. So we have a lot of resources on our website, jwrc.org, that parents can go to find out how to do a family safety night, for examples of what-if games, for our Empower Me Body rules, for teenager safety rules, and because these are conversations kids need at all ages.
Do you think that the probability of finding a missing child today has been more successful than maybe, say, 10, 20 years ago before social media?
It's a combination of a lot of factors. There are far better resources as the years have gone by. The training of law enforcement has been, has raised. Legislation has changed, requiring certain things in missing child cases that used to not be required. So it's the individual, it's law enforcement having additional resources, having additional training. It's nonprofit organizations like ours, like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, like a wide variety of different people doing this work, coming together. So, and it's also the awareness. We don't know if rates of abuse cases that we get are going higher because they're happening more, or if it's just because kids are talking about it more and are disclosing. You know, so it's hard to know exactly why those numbers ebb and flow, but the more that we can empower people with information, the easier it is for us to create a safer world. Looking at something like the Amber Alert.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. How effective do you think that is?
Amber Alert is an amazing tool. Every single child that we have used the Amber Alert for in Minnesota since it was a tool available to law enforcement, I think it happened in 2002 in Minnesota, every single child has been recovered alive that the Amber Alert has been used for in Minnesota. And that's a phenomenal, phenomenal thing to celebrate. You know, the National Center keeps track of the hundreds of children who have come home as a direct result of the Amber Alert. And when we can get everyone's eyes and everyone's ears looking, that's wonderful. And then our goal is also, when it's not, you know, a non-family abduction, that we continue to still get eyes and ears looking, because a lot of our endangered runaways are at great risk. You know, they're at high risk for trafficking. There are people who are looking out for them in the negative way. You know, hanging out at bus stops, hanging out at malls, trying to find teens who can get in over their head who they don't think will be missed. And we always want to be a step ahead.
Up next on Our Issues Twin Cities, an organization that began from a group of parents of missing children. For over 30 years, Missing Children Minnesota has been a pillar in helping thousands of families in Minnesota and across the Midwest in finding their loved ones through 24-hour case management and crisis prevention services.
I was going through a divorce, and my ex-husband kidnapped my 2-year-old son, who he was not the father of my child. I was actually getting divorced so I could marry the father of my child. Okay. And he managed to stay hidden with him for 13 months. And during that time, we changed the law on parental abduction in the state of Minnesota, because he was considered the legal parent since I was married to him when the child was born. Okay. And started Missing Children Minnesota and helped a lot of other people and so on. And then my son was found the same day that our incorporation papers went through the state.
We see the abduction by a family member most commonly. And part of the reason for that is that a lot of the parents who are searching for their missing children that have been taken by a family member are referred to us by the family court. So they begin their proceedings and they go to the Self-Help Center for resources, and they're given a pamphlet that refers them to us. So we kind of get a pipeline for that. And I think too, a lot of the social services agencies around here know that Carol was the parent of a child who was abducted by a family member. And so they know that her experience in particular is with that group. We also see a lot of children who are classified as runaways and children who have been put out of their home.
A lot of missing children cases go overlooked. Why is that?
Part of the reason that some children cases are overlooked is that the children are simply not reported missing. They're not reported missing to the police. We don't see those cases because if they're not reported missing, we don't know to look for them. Okay. And that, I think, is the real tragedy of the of missing children. They just aren't reported. There was a case recently where they broke up a child trafficking ring, and many of the children that they rescued from that trafficking ring were never reported missing. So we need to get the word out to parents that, you know, and foster parents and anyone else who knows that a child is missing, that they should report them to the police.
A lot of what we do is what I like to call pathfinding, which is like, here's how you file a police report. Here's the kind of attitude that is successful with the police. Parents are very, very stressed, and they're upset, they're angry, and they're terrified when they're trying to report this crime. And often, you know, they don't present themselves well to law enforcement. And so we assist them with that. We assist them with logistics around, once they've gotten the police report filed, we'll help them create a poster, we'll help them distribute information, we'll help to resource them for whatever kinds of things they need. And we just recently got a $3,500 donation from the Get Her Done Foundation. Larry the Cable Guy has a foundation.
Oh, really?
He's one of the most generous celebrities. And we got a $3,500 grant from them to help with incidental expenses that are associated. Oftentimes a parent will bankrupt themselves looking for the child. Then the child is found and they don't have money for the plane ticket to go get them. Basically, the rules are you don't go anywhere with anybody, you don't take anything from anybody without first talking to the person that's taking care of you, which might be mom or dad or grandma or daycare provider or teacher or softball coach or whatever. But the children are taught to go to the responsible adult.
They teach you how to write checks in school, they teach you how to balance your checkbook, they teach you all sorts of skills, but they don't teach you what to do when your child goes missing. You know, that's not something that we're prepared for, it's not something we expect. So we're kind of here to just help them over the barriers to an effective search.
If you have a tip or lead on a missing child or person, please contact your local police department immediately. Thank you for joining me this week on Our Issues Twin Cities. I'm Rana Kamal. See you next time.
Eva Marie is a 6-year-old that is missing from Colorado. She's being searched for by her father and her grandmother, and they are believed to be outside of the state of Colorado. The mother left the state with her as in violation of the court order, and she is believed by the court to be in danger, and the mother has no custody of the child, no visitation, no parenting rights whatsoever. So if anyone sees Eva Marie, they should call the police and give a tip that they know where she is.